LMS Tactical for video on the same day. I'm on a roll. So I'm on my way back from the doctor's office, and I wanted to tell a story that is a true story, and I was trying to think. I don't remember if I've told this story before. My memory gets a little weird. It's going to be a little long, so if you're looking for a quick story, I'm sorry. But it's true, and I want to tell it to you because I'm curious to see what anybody might think in terms of what it means. I don't have a clue, and I'm pretty open-minded. I believe in things like paranormal and blah, 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 you know. I believe in aliens and ghosts and things like that, but I'd never heard of anything like this before, and I'm not sure what it means. So it's a true story. Here's what happened. I was, for those of you that don't know, I'm a retired Los Angeles police officer, and this was back in the early 90s, I guess. The way the things worked back then, just to get you oriented, was, you know, officers were assigned divisions, and I did time in Watts, which was Southeast Division, Crash, the whole bit, down by the beach in Venice. But in this particular time, I was working Hollywood Division. And when another division, neighboring division, has some sort of an event, maybe a 3-day training schedule where they're going to go out and do tactical stuff or whatever, Christmas parties, something that requires that the whole division be there, what they would, I don't know if they still do it, but in those days they would select officers from surrounding divisions to come in and work that division, you know, to fill in the gaps. And of course, in those days, we didn't have GPSs and blah, blah, blah. So you'd get maps, and it would take forever to get to calls, and you didn't know the area. So my partner and I, we got assigned for, I guess, about 3 or 4 days to Central Division, which is downtown. If you ever saw the old show, Adam 12, that's the division they were talking about when they would be like, 1 Adam 12, 1 Adam 12. The 1 designates the division, which is Central Division. Hollywood was 6, but I digress. So we were working PM watch, which starts, I think it's like 3 p.m. to 11. And we get down there, and the way it works is when a shift is ended, just before you end your shift, your watch is what we call them, you make sure that you clean out your car, make sure there's no trash or evidence that somebody dumped in there or whatever, and you top off the gas, clean the windows if you're nice, that kind of thing. Leave it in good order for the next 2 that are going to take over. And so that's what we did. We went and we got the day watch car. They handed the keys to us. I was driving on this night, and we went out and we did our patrol. And so when the watch was over, morning watch, which is like graveyard hours, these guys were coming with their shotgun and their bag, these 2 guys. We didn't know them because we're not from that division. But we pulled up, we had gassed up the car, everything was good. And I hand the keys of the car to the driver. We have a little small talk. Hey, you guys, you know, be safe, blah, 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 blah. There were some calls in this area of shots fired or whatever. Just, you know, be aware of that. And then that was it. I drove home. I drove 70-something miles home. I lived in Rancho Cucamonga. And after visiting with my now ex-wife and the kids or whatever, I went to bed. And all of a sudden, a couple hours later, whatever, a few hours later, I come flying out of that bed like something in a movie, almost over dramatic. Like I just rose right to my feet, screaming. And I was completely hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe. I had tears coming down my face. And my ex-wife, now ex-wife, I'll just say my wife, but it's not my current wife. My wife just freaked out, and she's crying, and she's like, well, oh my God, what's happening? And I couldn't talk because I was still trying to figure out what just happened, but I was terrified, and I couldn't breathe. And so finally, I'm walking back and forth, and I'm shaking like a leaf, and I calmed down. I never smoked in the house, ever, because of the kids, but I lit a cigarette right there in the bedroom, and I was shaking. Very, very traumatic thing had happened, and of course I thought it was a nightmare. And as I sat on the bed and I told her what happened, and I can see it even right now, just as if it was yesterday. And so I told her the story. I said, you know, I had the worst nightmare that I've ever had in my life. And I said, it felt like I was there. And the nightmare was, I said, I knew I was in a police car because I was going, there was no sound, but I was going down a dark street, a narrow street, and I was in the driver's seat. And I could see on the walls of the buildings on both sides of the street that there were red and blue lights, you know, rotating. So in those days, we didn't have the LEDs. So I could see the reflection. I'm getting all jacked up just talking about this. And as that happened, I'm driving along, and there was this unbelievable impact. And it wasn't noise. It was like no sound at all. But this tremendous force, and the car turned upside down. So I'm upside down now, and I'm flying through the air. And when I hit wherever I hit, a huge wave of dirt and like sand came through the windshield, and it went up my nose and deep into my throat. So I was choking. And all of a sudden, it was like an out-of-body experience. I'm hovering over an upside-down police car in this pit. And I'll never forget this. And I can see that there's a Hispanic guy, probably in his 40s, and he's in an old beat-up, like, red Datsun pickup truck. Small one. And he's looking in my direction, but I can tell he doesn't see me. He's looking at the car, or the area where the car is. He can't really see it because it's down in a hole. But his face was just horrified. And then I woke up. And that was that. And, you know, it took me quite a while to calm down because it was so real. It was unbelievable. I mean, I could taste dirt. I finally get back to sleep, who knows how long later. And my wife, hours later, she comes and wakes me up, and she's crying. Now, in those days, when a cop got killed, you really paid attention because, you know, all your friends were cops. And when you heard that a cop got killed in LA, man, your heart stopped, because bad enough a cop died, but you were terrified that it was somebody you knew. And she's crying, and she said, oh my God, you know, Michael, you know, prepare yourself. I'm like, what? She goes, 3 officers got killed last night. And I'm like, and I'm thinking a massive gunfight, and I'm like, 3 officers got killed? What are you talking about? You know, and she had heard it on the news, and of course I run to go turn on the news. It was being covered. And there was this horrific car accident. And what happened was, there were 4 officers involved. Only one lived, and he was a new probationer who just came out of the academy. He was the only guy wearing his seatbelt. And one of the central cars had put out a backup on a stolen vehicle. And so units start to haul ass to get to where the backup is. And one of the guys, you know, the senior guys, was downtown LA has a lot of one-way streets. And so he's driving the wrong way on a one-way street. And he's going very fast to get to backup. And as he gets to an intersection, there's another unit going, like, let's say he's driving south. Another unit is going west, and they're both going very high speed to get to this officer who's west of their location. And no sirens, just the lights flashing. We call that like code 2.5. And you really weren't supposed to do that, but everybody did it. Let me get out of here. And they hit with no brakes. They didn't see each other. They hit, and one of the cars hit a street light or a telephone pole, and that the driver officer was literally ejected through through the side window. And I mean, there were guns and bullets and blood and body parts everywhere. The other car, it careened to the left, and they were building a high-rise there, another high-rise in downtown LA. But before they build the high-rise, they dig this very deep basement. You know how they are in these big, tall buildings. And there was like plywood on the other side of like a chain link fence or something, or plywood going around this hole, very deep, multi-stories. And that car flew through the plywood and rotated upside down, and then the officers died there. And I'm thinking, and of course my wife and I are thinking, my God, that's very close to the dream I had. I mean, that's like almost exactly what happened. And that was freaky enough. You can imagine my surprise when we get to work that night and we're still assigned to Central. Guess what car went through that frickin' plywood and into that ditch? It was the very car that I was driving. And the guy that died in that car, I handed the keys to and had my little small talk with. And the car was upside down and filled with dirt and sand. And the thing of it is, I have no doubt that, and of course the accident happened at the same time that my dream happened. And so I have no doubt that in some fashion I was present during this accident. But what confounds me, and what I can't understand when I think about it, and I've thought about it a lot, is what does that mean? I don't see the connection. In other words, I'm not a ghost, so I wasn't haunting the police car. I don't know, what is that? Do we leave a little bit of our essence where we were? Are we connected through some ethereal matrix that, like the Acacia records, where everything is connected, that ever it was, ever is, and ever will be? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, clearly, that's not a coincidence. I would guarantee, I would bet a year's pay that there was a Hispanic dude in a red Datsun pickup truck that saw that happen and was looking right over there. I saw the dude, and this was in real time. So I don't know, man. It's life is a mystery, and I love that part of it. Of course, that was a big tragedy that these guys lost their lives in such a way, but what a mystery, man. What do you guys, has anybody ever heard of anything like that at all? Let me know what your thoughts are. That's my story. LMS Tactical, stay safe. Wear your seatbelt. I'm out.